Harmony Springs was a town where the seasons dictated life. Summers brought bustling farmers markets, autumn painted the town in warm hues, and winters meant cozy evenings by the fire. Its charm lay in its simplicity, a haven for those who sought peace. Yet, as serene as it appeared, Harmony Springs was no stranger to trials. At the heart of the town lived Clara Thompson, a middle-aged woman whose life was unremarkable to most. She lived in a modest home with her husband Jack and their two children, David and Lily. Clara's days were filled with chores, community service, and the occasional coffee with friends. But few people knew about one part of her life: her commitment to prayer. Clara believed in the unseen power of faith. She wasn't just someone who prayed out of obligation. She prayed with a conviction that shook the heavens. She had a tiny room in her home, a prayer closet she had fashioned from an old pantry. Its walls were covered in sticky notes with names, needs, and scriptures. For Clara, this room wasn't just a quiet space. It was a battleground. Clara's reputation in the town was that of a kind and gentle soul. She baked pies for church events, helped at the food bank, and always had a listening ear. But what people didn't realize was that Clara spent hours interceding for them in her prayer closet. She believed that every battle in life had a spiritual root and could only be won through prayer. Her husband Jack, though supportive, often teased her about the time she spent praying. "Clara, you're going to wear out those knees," he'd chuckle. She'd smile and reply, "Jack, these knees are my strongest weapon." One night, as Clara prayed, a sense of urgency filled her heart. She didn't know why, but she felt a pressing need to pray for the town as a whole. She knelt on the worn mat in her prayer room and cried out to God, asking for protection, provision, and peace. That summer, Harmony Springs faced its worst drought in decades. The fields, once lush and green, turned brown and brittle. Farmers were on the brink of losing their livelihoods, and the local economy began to crumble. To make matters worse, a mysterious illness swept through the town, affecting young and old alike. As fear and despair took hold, Clara knew she couldn't stand idly by. She began visiting her neighbors, offering words of hope and promises of prayer. At first, some were skeptical. "What good will prayer do?" one farmer asked bitterly. Clara's response was steady. "Prayer moves mountains. Maybe it's time we started climbing together." She invited her neighbors to her home for a prayer meeting. Only a handful showed up at first, but Clara's unwavering faith inspired them. As the weeks went by, more people joined. Her living room became a sanctuary where the brokenhearted found hope and the weary found rest. One evening, as the group prayed, dark clouds gathered over Harmony Springs. For weeks, the skies had been clear, offering no relief. But that night, thunder rumbled, and rain poured down in torrents. The townsfolk ran outside, laughing and crying, as the parched earth soaked up the water. Clara's prayer group became the talk of the town. Even those who had scoffed at the idea of prayer began to attend. Farmers prayed for their crops, parents prayed for their children, and the sick prayed for healing. Clara continued to lead with humility, always pointing the credit back to God. Just as hope began to return to Harmony Springs, Clara faced a devastating trial. Her son, David, was in a severe car accident while returning home from college. The news shattered her. Doctors warned that David's injuries were life-threatening and that even if he survived, he might never walk again. Clara was heartbroken, but she refused to let despair take over. She called for a town-wide day of prayer, asking everyone to intercede for David. Churches opened their doors, and homes became places of worship as the community came together. Clara spent every night at David's bedside, holding his hand and praying aloud. Her prayers weren't just pleas, they were declarations of faith. "Lord, you are the great healer. David's life is in your hands." Weeks turned into months. There were moments of doubt, nights when Clara wept in solitude. But every time despair crept in, she felt an unexplainable peace that renewed her strength. One morning, as Clara sat by David's bed reading scripture, he stirred. "Mom," he whispered, "I dreamed I was walking." Tears streamed down her face as she reassured him, "One day, you will." David's recovery was slow but steady. He regained not only his strength, but also his ability to walk by the astonishment of his doctors. His recovery was a testament to the power of faith and prayer. Inspired by his journey, David decided to become a physical therapist, dedicating his life to helping others overcome physical challenges. Clara's prayer meetings had outgrown her home. The town came together to build a community center dedicated to prayer, counseling, and support. Clara remained at its heart, a humble yet powerful figure who had inspired a movement of faith. Years later, when Clara passed away peacefully in her sleep, her legacy lived on. At her funeral, stories of her prayers and their impact were shared. People from all walks of life spoke of how her unwavering faith had touched them. One neighbor, a former skeptic, summed it up best. Clara didn't just teach us to pray, she taught us to believe. The Prayer Warrior. Clara's unyielding faith is a story of perseverance, hope, and the incredible power of prayer. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, faith can light the way, transforming lives and communities. The story of the Prayer Warrior. Clara's unyielding faith teaches several profound lessons. The power of prayer. Prayer is not just a ritual, but a powerful act of faith that can bring about real change. Clara's dedication to prayer transformed her community and brought hope to those in despair. Faith in adversity. Even when faced with personal trials like her son's accident, Clara held on to her faith. Her steadfast belief demonstrates that unwavering faith can carry us through life's darkest moments. Community and unity. Clara's story highlights the importance of coming together as a community. When the townsfolk united in prayer, they witnessed miracles that strengthened their bonds and gave them a shared purpose. A life lived with faith and purpose leaves a lasting impact. Clara's prayers and actions created a ripple effect, inspiring others to believe, pray, and support one another. Clara's hope and faith were infectious. Her belief in the power of prayer encouraged others to embrace hope, even when circumstances seemed impossible. The overarching lesson is that prayer, combined with faith and action, has the power to transform lives, heal hearts, and strengthen communities. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.